And we will now move into a security panel discussion, which is on evolving cybersecurity priorities in the digital decade. Now, we have a couple of panelists who are joining in from across the country. I'd like to welcome Mr. Partha Sengupta, who is the Senior Vice President, IT Services from ITC Infotech India Limited. Mr. Partha Sengupta has more than 24 years of industry experience in managing diverse IT solutions for various business verticals like banking and finance, stock exchange, automobiles, ITES, FMCG, manufacturing, travel and hospitality and consulting firms, etc. He heads the IT shared services for ITC Group that runs key business applications for various business verticals. He has been instrumental in design, implementation, and sustenance of state-of-the-art IT infrastructure. I warmly welcome you, Mr. Partha Sengupta, sir. Our next panelist at the security panel will be Mr. Milind G. Mungale. He is the Executive Vice President and CISO for NSDL E-Governance Infrastructure Limited. Mr. Mungale has 35 years of IT industry experience. He has been with NSDL for 25 years now and has set up the Information and Infrastructure Security Management System, Security Operations Center, then a compliance framework for Business Continuity and Information Technology Act. He has implemented online reputation management systems, mobile device management system, and data leak prevention system. Mr. Mungale has also implemented the complete infrastructure and technical solution for offering e-sign services. I warmly welcome you, Mr. Milind Mungale, sir. Our next panelist will be Mr. Alok Shukla, who is the Senior Vice President and Head of Product Management and Business Solutions Group at Airtel Business, Bharti Airtel Limited. Mr. Alok Shukla leads product management of data products for Airtel Business and is also responsible for Airtel's global network investment and partnerships. He has successfully led product growth strategy across global and enterprise businesses. I warmly welcome you, Mr. Alok Shukla, sir. And our final panelist today will be Mr. Navaneethan M., who is the Senior Vice President, CISO and Head of IT for Groww. Mr. Navaneethan carries a deep passion and love for the cybersecurity and has extensive experience and expertise in areas such as CISO and CIO operation, strategic cybersecurity, account management, enterprise security, and risk management, cyber emerging technology, cyber threat landscape, hacking and countermeasures, business development, cybersecurity, business operations, program management, and people leadership. He is holding 21 cybersecurity industry leading certifications. He is a SIG Council member of NASSCOM Cybersecurity Future Skill with Government of India. He has been mentoring many startup organizations and is a part of the board of studies across different universities. And prior to Groww, Mr. Navaneethan has played vital cybersecurity roles in Xerox, Capgemini, Deloitte, and PayU. I warmly welcome you, Mr. Navaneethan, sir. And our chairperson and moderator for the session is Mr. Siddharth Viswanath, who is the partner, risk advisory and cybersecurity leader for PwC India. Mr. Siddharth Viswanath has over 20 years of consulting experience and has been with the firm for over 10 years. His experience cuts across strategy, risk, and cybersecurity. He is personally focused on serving clients in financial service sector. In his current role, he is responsible for growing cybersecurity practice for India. He leads a team of over 700 delivering strategy through execution in cyberspace. I warmly welcome you, Mr. Siddharth Viswanath. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be starting the cybersecurity panel, which is on evolving cybersecurity priorities in the digital decade. If you have any questions for the panelists, kindly use the Q&A box to key in your questions, and we will get to them at the end of the session. I will be handing over the session to the chairperson, Mr. Siddharth Viswanath from PwC India. Over to you, sir, to moderate the panel.
Thank you, Raki, for the wonderful introductions and for bringing us all together. So thank you very much for that. And a very good afternoon to all of you who have sort of taken time out to be part of the session today. I'm sort of excited to have this interactive session with my fellow panelists and looking forward to the conversation with Partha, Milind, Alok, and Navaneethan. So I think with that, maybe let me get started off with the first question around cyber and the digital decade. So maybe let me start with you, Partha. So Partha, over the last 2.5 years, we've seen a big surge in the number of attacks, right? So what is really happening in the threat landscape, and is there any correlation between what's happening in the threat landscape and as Rakhi put it, the digital decade, right, or the digital transformation initiatives organizations are taking? So good to hear some perspectives from you, Partha.
Yep, the driver, which we say that there are two drivers which is actually forcing this change. First of all, we are looking at anywhere, anytime access to our digital capabilities of the organization. And if you're looking for anywhere, anytime access to the digital capabilities of the organization, it is bound to have that either we have made some mistakes or we're doing something wrong, and which is actually giving the ability for attackers to compromise our system. This is number one from us as a customer. From us as a customer perspective. This is number one. Number two is that today an organization is delivered to the digital capabilities. Once it is digital, once an organization is delivering their business outcome through digital capabilities, it is extremely lucrative for the threat actors to work on these areas and ensure that they will be able to bring down the organization, hence they will be able to generate more revenue out of this ecosystem of business, and they will be able to the more trophy, that whenever you are actually trying to do something, you're looking for a trophy to do. There has to be something behind your mind that why I'm doing this act. It's a wrong act. The wrong act is delivered because there are more trophies around it, because the digital capabilities are available today and the threat actors are working towards that. These are the two perspectives which I wanted to bring into this today.
Sure. So clearly, I mean, there's a lot more digitization. So the threat surface, attack surface has gone up. And, I think that's a great point you bring out, Partha. So thanks for that. Maybe, Milind, would you like to share your reflection on what could be changing over the last 2-3 years? Milind, I think you're on mute.
Yeah. So there are two specific things, Siddharth. The first is that in last 1.5 years, 2 years, we have seen that most of the people have been working from home. So where the environment was a fortified environment when they used to work from office, suddenly that whole environment has shifted to various places where you cannot be assured of the kind of endpoint and the network security that you would otherwise would have built in the office. So maybe that is also one of the reasons that suddenly if you find there are a lot of places where you can reach, and through them you can jump onto some critical networks or critical infrastructures, people would definitely try to do that. So that could be one of the reasons why primarily there has been a surge into the kind of attacks that have been increasing in last 2.5 years. The second most important thing is, as the digitization is increasing, they know that there's a lot more information which is coming into a place from where it can be fetched. So the motivation, if you see what has actually increased, you don't see a lot of DDoS attacks. Of course, they have not stopped, but you don't see DDoS attacks. You don't see defacing attacks. You don't see fake website attacks. What you see is primarily those kind of attacks where the hacker can get and hold on to the information. And why is that tempting now? The reason for that is that more and more information is coming into that domain from where it can be fetched. From paper to digital, that risk always persisted, and now it has increased multifold. So that's what I think about it.
Sure. So I think both Partha and you make a point to say it is profit motive that's kind of driving this, and it's a lot more data exfiltration focus as opposed to DDoS and other sort of activities. So maybe I'll sort of pivot this question a little differently to when I go to Navaneethan. So Navaneethan, I think while it would be good to get your reflection on the broader story, what do you think could be some of the other drivers? Do you think other threat actors, so of course the cyber criminals out there playing, are there other threat actors who've also heightened the activities? I mean, some perspectives of that as well, Navaneethan.
Yeah, absolutely, Siddharth. It's a very valid one. I mean, it's emerging across the most of the industry, not only in the fintech. After the pandemic is started, I mean, where we are going to a lot of challenges from the end to end. The first and foremost thing is I can say is internal, external threat sectors where we have a lot of challenges. The first and foremost things is like we are not sure in terms of the data, right? Which data, who holds what kind of data. I mean, it's like we flooded with the data. Even during the pandemic, there is no segregations of who's handling what kind of data, including internal, external. At the same time, the specific to the the employee and then the data. Segregation of data, the know your data, whether it is where we have a crown jewel, where you have which is critical to the business. So the know your data is very the challenges. Second one is since the pandemic started, where we have a lot of challenges in terms of accessing. Most of the organization, they are forced to get into the cloud infrastructure from the on-prem infrastructure. So that's why just where we have a lot of challenges in terms of the building and scaling up the cloud infrastructure. It's very simple, right? I mean, if you have earlier we are talking about in terms of you should have a complete protection in terms of the infrastructure. Now it's like a simple private key is leaked out where we can into the lot of challenges. So close to 67% global survey talks about where we have challenges on the the cloud infrastructure where the people are not scaled up and really they have a lot of issues and the things in terms of accessing the the key stuff. And third one is in terms of the ransomware. Really on the current situations, the systems are not patched and there are a lot of supply chain attacks that came into the pictures. So where we don't have the much controls on our own set of data. So the supply chain it's created a major impact in the the industry. So most of the organizations are not only protecting their own set of data, really just now we have extended to protect our client data or maybe who are the service providers. We have to ensure that their environment is also safe and secure. So that standpoint, really just we have to focus on both the way, like internal, external, at the same time, not only on this organization in terms of, the supplier as well as the vendors who is providing the services, environment also needs to be protected to ensure, our organization.
Sure. No, I think that's valid. But Alok, your thoughts as well on this topic.
Yes, Siddharth. So I think pretty much covered, but the way we see it is again talked about essentially three pillars of why this surface is increasing. One is, of course, the data center to cloud kind of a migration, and that's just starting. So obviously the scale is going to go up in a massive way as more and more of these hybrid transitions happen. Second is work from anywhere kind of a concept, wherein which others also talked about, which again is increasing your surface because you're accessing all these applications from anywhere. And then the third one, I think, which is very important, is that the entire digital ecosystem is no longer a back-end engineering IT ecosystem. It's right at the front end, which is a business driver. And therefore, from an attack perspective, the impact is much higher on business as compared to some time back. So I think these are the three pillars to my mind, which are sort of increasing or fueling this growth.
Sure. No, I think thanks, Alok. Well summarized. So I think clearly, I think all of you've touched upon various facets, but clearly digital transformation, work from anywhere, anytime. I mean, something that we are doing today as well. And this entire journey towards cloud. I mean, these are clearly three pillars that are driving this change. And I think one comment that Navaneethan also brought in, which is this entire piece around supply chain. how do you secure your supply chain? So anyway, we'll talk more about that as I throw in the next question, maybe starting with you, Alok, which is, have you seen a shift in terms of, so we talked about the surge in number of attacks, and we're saying that these 3-4 trends is leading to a larger attack surface. So people are saying, okay, let's go after, there's a greater opportunity. So people are attacking more. But is there a change in the nature and complexity of attacks? And, what are we seeing there? So Alok, maybe if you could throw some light on that.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think one, there is no perfect stage in the security world, as I think the leaders in this panel would vouch for. So that whole landscape of complexity in any case is an ever increasing complexity by the day. But at a fundamental level, if you see the three facets, right, which is at the user level, at the perimeter level, which is the entire network gamut and all of that, and then at your cloud access level, right? As more and more distributed and hybrid architectures at a customer application level are evolving, that obviously in each of these buckets, whether we go to the user access bucket, the perimeter bucket, or even the cloud access bucket, that whole complexity is obviously going up dramatically. And the other part is that it doesn't matter where the threat comes from. And you have to constantly, at the same time, not sequentially, manage all these three buckets. I think that's one reason, and the way I see the complexity is increasing. The second part is that as this information and the criticality of data and the volume of data because of IoT and number of trends that are available in the industry, this is becoming absolutely humongous and practically impossible to deal with it in the traditional ways, the way security used to be looked at. And therefore, an AI-based kind of tool, detections, and those kinds of things are obviously a lot more complex to design and sustain than in the earlier days. To my mind, these are the two changes in complexity, Siddharth, that the way we see it, at least at Airtel.
Sure. So you're saying a lot of it is to do with the way hybrid cloud sort of deployments are happening within organizations, and therefore, the complexity is going up. Okay, fair, Alok. Navaneethan, your thoughts in terms of complexity of attacks?
Absolutely. So that's so now it may not require to have a complexity. If you take a MITRE attack, you wanted to try with the 255 possibility of attack, right? In terms of which are the sectors you wanted to have it. Early stages it was very complex. Now the social engineering is just a matter of the few seconds and few minutes, right? I mean, earlier about, it's been a long time, right? So more than 10 years, we are talking about the phishing and spear phishings and the social attacks, where how we can penetrate and then get things. So now it's very easier than earlier. Okay, that's what if you see this ransomware, it's close to 66%. It has increased purely the lack of awareness of what needs to be taken care from the end to end. Because most of the organizations, they face it in the the different way. And second one is on top of the ransomware, malware as a service. I mean, most of the organizations, if you see that a lot of APT and a lot of the existing attackers, they are offering user services on the dark web, specifically on the malware side. Like earlier it was close to 53, I think now it has crossed more than 66%. So that's the way the ransomware and the malware as a service really gone. Since the fundamentals of supply chain plus fundamentals of the lack of awareness on the phishing stuff. And third factor is, again, it's I can say is on the cloud side. It's a very simple. Like earlier, if you want to check in the code, just you have a code repository from the end to end. If you want to do the check-in where you have a very closed environment, now it is very simple, right? You may have a GitHub repository or GitLab repository. Instead of doing it on the public or the private one, just you can check in the the private repositories. So maybe where you are with that check-in, it's it's a matter of time, right? I mean that data major impact. And fourth one is if you say the traditional setup, I mean maybe on the PCDs itself, we can take it as the example. What we do is like a quarterly where we do the continuous attack surface or maybe external BAPT to ensure that our infrastructure is secure enough. But the current situations where we need a continuous attack surface, the management, because previous day night what it was in the cloud may not be on the next day morning. Really, we have a lot of challenges. In terms of the cloud infrastructure, where the code is leaked out or the private key is leaked out, or it's maybe on the overall check-in where they're supposed to do the check-in on the private one, they would have done it on the public. So that's why the third factor is really just we need a continuous attack surface management, which leads to the the major impact. It's not like the earlier. Really, we are ramping up. It's all the things on the the digital. If you take any fintech or maybe any the recent upcoming organization, maybe another organization, so they are in the the on-prem, absolutely on the cloud, on the cloud side where we can take it forward. And fourth point is on the shadow IT. Like if you see this current situations on the cloud, we have a lot of challenges, right? I mean, earlier if you see this, if you want to buy any software or applications where we have a set of process and policies and guidelines where we have to incorporate it. Now the current situation absolutely changed. You have a card, plug in the card, and then where we can plug into your API and you can pull the data. Or maybe you can make an interface and the data goes inside and then it processes and then give the output. So maybe since SaaS model coming to the picture, it's a lot of challenges on the shadow IT. Really, we are not sure like who's plugging in what and what information. It's like a parallel architecture. Like it may not be a just one model, one API. Just I can plug in, I can pull out all the data. So that standpoint, where really just we need it on the cloud side from the end to end, what needs to be taken care, and continuous attack surface needs to be taken care to ensure that in terms of overall the threat landscapes.
Sure. No, thanks, Navaneethan, to cover that off. I mean, clearly you're talking about attacks not necessarily becoming more complex, but is becoming more ubiquitous with ransomware as a service, malware as a service, and this entire supply chain of threat actors. If you say it's almost like an industry that runs in the dark web. So I think those, absolutely. So I think it is become much more ubiquitous in terms of the number of attacks, the speed of attacks, etc. And you spoke about phishing. You spoke about some of the reasons why some of these attacks are becoming successful. I mean, the entire piece around shadow IT, etc. Fair point. I think one thing that I'd probably add is. Yeah, sorry.
One more, it's a very important stuff, probably, as you have highlighted. If you talk about top 10 OOPs, in terms of 2011, 2013, 14, 17, all the years, if you see that still top 10 is a top 10. Only this location is changed in terms of maybe cross-site scripting or XML or SQL injection. Whatever you take, maybe app side, no. It's like most of the attacks. It's maybe on the API or it's maybe on the web or it's maybe on the overall attack surface. Again, the top 10 remain top 10, only the location is changed. That means still the fundamental is missing, right? I mean, in terms of if you make any complexity, from the hacker standpoint, complexity is it's not there, not like earlier. It's just easy catwalk. Because still it's remain same on the most of the things.
Yeah, no, I think a good point. I mean, basically what you're saying is in many ways the basic fundamentals from a hacker perspective has not changed, and absolutely, it's just I think the capability of the malware that they're now trying to inject. I think the modus operandi of the attack may not have become changed too much, but what they want to attack has changed, and the second is the capability of the malware that they are injecting. I think that has become a little more complex for sure. And and then I just thought I'll add one point before I pass on sort of pass the baton on to Milind, is that some attacks have become there is a vector of change on a complexity side. We don't see too many of these attacks, but few attacks which are very specialized. So for example, the attack in the banking sector on the SWIFT platforms, which is for international remittances, very complex, sophisticated malware that was created. The attack that was done on SolarWinds, where a code was injected into the Orion software. Very, very unique method of attack in a sense. So yes, there is largely it's about speed and widening the attack, targets. But there is also a vector around complexity that at least I've been observing. But in all of what I heard from Alok, Navaneethan, in terms of complexity of attacks, the new challenges that organizations face. I mean, maybe Milind, just want to hear from you. What are those things that things that organizations need to be doing? I mean, what's the burning issue that organizations need to address when it comes to cybersecurity?
So, touch upon what Navaneethan said, I would like to just add a couple of lines to that and then come to this particular topic. So, the attackers' complexity is also due to the same kind of technology or better technology available with them. In fact, sometimes I suspect that like how the defenders have indicators of compromise, attackers may be having indicators of defense. Like how the defense have the threat intel, attackers also might be having a defense intel. So they are sharing all this information, what IPs are easy to hack, what IPs are difficult to hack, who's having an honeypot, who's gone in for a deception technology. And based on that, they are crafting out their attacks to suit that environment. So in a way, if you see, random attacks have been replaced by targeted attacks, and that you called it out yourself a couple of minutes back. So from that point of view, the complexity of the attack is increased, though the type and the variants of the attack have not gone up too many. Coming to your question as to what organizations should be doing is, primarily organizations at present moment, looking at the current place where we are coming back to normal or whatever you call it, new normal, the present moment, the organizations have to strictly reinforce their policies and their posture back. It has been a time, last 1.5 years, when many organizations had to relax to few things because of the basic business continuity requirement and not being able to possibly enforce the same kind of policies for the people working from various places. Now, the challenge is that when people are coming back to office, they start asking for various accesses. And when you try to tell them about the policies, they say, look, my friend, you have given me a laptop and I was using it at home. And at that particular time, I was able to access all these sites. As soon as I come to office, why are you restricting me? 1.5 years, we lived with this kind of policies and we have been able to survive. So it is necessary for the organizations to try and find out that if there are certain relaxations which were given during this pandemic period, whether they can be enforced back, whether the policies can be enforced back to make it into the kind of an secure posture that was there prior to the pandemic. The second challenge that organizations face, or the kind of complexity that organization has, is during this particular period, all said and done, the awareness training or the kind of exposure that the people were given when they were working from the organizations, from the perimeter of the organization, has been slightly lacking. So they'll have to bring their awareness levels back to the situation where it was prior to the pandemic. I will give an example. Even after giving the training, many organizations during phishing simulations have reported that most of their employees have got phished, and at a senior level. So from that point of view, it is very necessary. And the third thing is the social engineering. So social engineering, if today something happens in my organization, I go and post it on my Facebook because it was a celebration or it was something, then that kind of information can be picked and the phishing attacks can be crafted for that organization. Saying that if there was a Diwali celebration, I post a few photographs. Suddenly some phishing email can come to the various employees of that organization saying that due to the recent Diwali celebration, there has been a lucky draw, please enter into that lucky draw. And people will give all the information, employee code, blah, 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 all that information, and they will get phished. So the complexities are not oriented towards technology anymore. I think it is more on the behavior and processes which the organization are facing at present.
No, thanks, Milind. I think that's an interesting take, which is, it's a lot about human behavior. At the end of the day, it's a lot about leveraging technology, but leveraging human behavior and then using technology to really attack, wedge attacks. And you're right. I mean, many of the attacks actually start from a phishing. Once the first credential of the organization is stolen, the attacker is able to enter in and then spread out. So the first point of entry very often is a individual who's sort of the point of weakness. So great, I think I completely agree with you. Partha, what do organizations need to be doing in the wake of all of this?
So, okay. First of all, is that there's lot of great thoughts which has come in while discussing in the panels and all. So, what exactly we are trying to protect has come in, and what is happening in the industry is a very important element. We have to think from what organizations should do to overcome this situation. If you go back in the history last 2020 or 2021, that the average time to detect there is something which is happening in the organization and something which has happened with your organization, which was 221 days. Last year, people are saying average number of days which has gone from 221 days to 230 days, the average time to detect an incident. And that if you have to contain that security incident, that which was 77 days 1920, which has moved up in 83 days. And this is what exactly is the industry scenario. And if you go back to what is the action in hand, if you have to look at the corporation, what corporation need to do to overcome this situation, corporation need to detect any incident in 1 minute and complete the investigation in 10 minutes and remediate in 60 minutes. So what exactly we are trying to talk? We are trying to talk about a 221 days or a 230 days to 1 minute, and an investigation should complete in 10 minutes and 60 minutes. It's an impossible task which is there in the hand of the CISOs. Now, how it is that how do you bridge that gap? Bridge that gap is then a lot of organizations will be at a different maturity cycle of digital adoption and different maturity cycle of the security. And different maturity cycle of the compliance as per the LODR requirement of the country, law of land, which is I'm trying to talk on specifically from the India perspective. So thinking about all these three, that we have to somehow the cybersecurity acceleration has become an important requirement in every organization requirement. Every organization requires to do that. Few tasks is that lot of organization in a security maturity cycle will be good with prevent. They had good firewalls, good IDS, IPS. They had the good antivirus with EDR, with a basic SOC and all. And these were there in most of the large scale organization will be having all this setup. Now, what is the if you look at the cycle of security, prevent, detect, respond, and recover. It is this gap says that it is inevitable will get compromised. This 221 to 1 minute and all such thing tells it is inevitable you will get compromised. Somebody is not targeting you, hence you are safe. So your recover has to be a brilliant recovery option you should have. So the recovery as a solution. You say that digital business as a requirement and all, it should be agile, it should auto scale up, scale out, all such things. We have been talking in cybersecurity parlance because of this huge gap. You need to have a brilliant recovery mechanism. Even I will go down. Even if I go down, I will come back in next 1 hour's time, or I will come back in 3 hours time. Do and establish a dialogue with your business application, business partner in terms of IT continuity and business continuity. Put all focus in first in recovery. Then, because the business expectation to the recovery point in time, your recovery point in time is mapped very clearly in terms of your IT continuity requirement. It is not about the hardware failure. It is not against the data center failure. It is not against the network failure. It is again, your data will get corrupted. Somebody will ask ransomware from you, and next day you have to bring up your infrastructure. Or next 2 hours you have to bring up your infrastructure despite your compromise in terms of ransomware. This is number one perspective which is a recovery, is becoming a strong requirement for every organization. And the enhancement of detect and respond, the ability to detect and should get continuously should improve, because the business will be able to put in money on recovery only on your critical class 1 or class A type of application. But business will not be able to put a lot of money on your recovery for a class 2 or a class B kind of an application. They are also becoming a very important element for your business slowly, but although you may not declare that as a class 2 or a class B element in your business. So you have to consistently put in money on your detect and respond. So you will be able to constantly detect and respond and have an ability to do an investment over there. This is number 2. Number 3, an outcome of the detect and respond should go back to your preventing, so that the enhancement of prevention, so that prevention is something, there is no discussion around prevention. So there should be a consistent investment which is coming out of your detect and respond and should go back to your prevent ecosystem. I think this is what is the philosophy with which we need to, this is my belief, and this is, and in the age of offensive AI, where first you should be able to you actually can pretend like an user, and you'll be able to scale it up across the organization in no time, because of an offensive AI is today available. And that adversarial artificial intelligence is going to kill us otherwise, until unless we have this kind of an respond and recover solution in place. That's all from my side.
Sure. No, Partha, I think this is very well articulated, and I completely agree. I mean, all organizations, irrespective of the strong controls, preventive technologies you set up, you will get breached at some point or the other. So therefore, the entire thought process that you articulated, which is starting with recovery and then go to detect and response and finally prevent, I think that's really the mantra forward. So completely with you, can't agree with you more on that one. But thanks for Partha on that. But I think staying with you, Partha, maybe let me move the conversation a bit to say what. So as industry leaders, want to hear from all of you, all 4 of you actually. What do you think would be the top 2 or 3 trends on this entire space of cybersecurity for the year 2022? I mean, we are in December, we are in the last month of 2021, so I thought this would be a nice perspective to get from all of you. So maybe Partha first with you.
Okay. The one first element is that all security component. I don't want to tell that that multiple requirement of the industry. All security components should move to your edge. Move to your edge. If you have a laptop, if you have got any channel to move out, because data is not within your corporation's boundary. So that you do not have a data center. There is no data center, which is all right. The data center concept has gone. It's a virtual. So your whole security has to come into your laptop. It should start from your head. This is one. Is a SASE is also along with that. If I have to scale up that, your enterprise data center firewall, your enterprise IDS, your enterprise IPS, your detection mechanism, everything should move to your edge. Number 1. And that we will see slowly that will get protected around what you can do, what you cannot do will be governed by a lot of cloud delivery models of security. That will take you to wherever you want to go. There are a lot of companies which is going to come up, and there are some brilliant companies that are doing very good job in this area. So the acceptance of those solutions will be a mantra for tomorrow, because this work from home has accelerated this journey of moving security to the edge. People will know that people will not come back to office and all start operating, going through your company's gateway, doing this, that, and all. It's absolutely, it is not going to happen. Number 1. Number 2 is that because of what you need as an user, I need similar experience. The way that I have got in my laptop, I move my app, it moves from my laptop to my iPad or a the pad which I have got. From there, I move it. I should move to my mobile. I need a similar experience. The app should be able to give me that kind of a fantastic feature, and so that I'll be able to enjoy that facility for my digital experience. If I need that, there is a lot of focus which is we are going to see that the application security area is going to get a lot of traction. One is in the edge, one is in the application portfolio. We are going to see that we are going to have. Third element which is going to come is that which has given last few years we have heard is that Industry 4.0 adoption of Industry 4.0. Because of immersive digital experience, we are talking about the intelligent factory, intelligent branch of a bank also, intelligent where the customer is going to come and do the transaction while they're coming with his glass, Google Glass or some other glass and all. This IoT security is going to scale up drastically in next 1 year's time. So these are the three component. One is a security of the application because of similar digital experience across every platform, security of the edge, security of the IoT. These three are certainly, in my view, I'm not getting into my priority. If you really want me to ask that these are the three areas is going to become my priority, because this is going to become an important element for me. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Partha. Alok?
Yeah, Siddharth, hi. So that again, in terms of the priority areas, I think one of the very critical aspect is, in addition to some of these things, is that how will you scale this, right? How will this ever-changing landscape be updated? And how do you do it? The point Partha was mentioning on the prevention side and some of those things. If we leave if I give a different lens and leave the large corporates and enterprises and see the full landscape of startups, etc., I think one of the priorities needs to be about how do you make this up to date and scalable, and therefore how do you bring in partners who have the right tools, etc. But not just a product of security, but the entire suite who's managing this prevention, detection, recovery mechanism, A, at scale, and B, always being up to date with the latest things. So I think these are the two things, depending on which bucket you are, which would be a big priority and a trend. At Airtel, in any case, we also have, other than our big Airtel ecosystem, of course, this also as a service in the B2B space, and hence we see millions and millions of these. Sorry, Siddharth, I missed that. Okay, am I audible, Siddharth? Okay. So that, sorry, I
Alok, maybe I'll just come back. I'm saying you were breaking up a bit, but maybe we'll just come back to you. But I did catch two comments. One was around cloud security and that fit. And the second thing that you talked about is how should some of the some of the organizations really need a lot of approach to be able to secure their ecosystem and pivot more towards managed services and so on and so forth, especially given the talent crunch that's there in the market. So maybe that's also interesting topic we'll talk about, which is the talent crunch. But maybe your top 2 or 3, your views on the industry priority for 2022.
That your voice is not audible.
Okay, you want to come in?
Siddharth, your voice is,
Yeah,
you
it's
may, you may connect and
Can you
disconnect.
hear it?
Let him connect.
Hello,
Yes,
is my voice better?
we are able to hear you now.
Yeah, yeah, better.
Oh, I'm really sorry. I thought it was Alok's connection. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, no, so maybe Milind, do you want to share a little bit about your perspectives on the priorities for 2022?
Yeah, sure. As someone was saying about the speed of remediation or response, I think the priority will definitely be automation for mitigation, remediation, and response. And that would mean the SOAR technology is something which will be the priority. The second thing is it is enough of being a defensive organization. It is enough of being defending ourselves or any organization. I think there is a need to go in more advanced stage. And the second thing that comes to my mind as a priority is, of course, the deception technology, where it would be possible to study more about what are these attackers wanting to do, how they want to do it, and what would be the way to prevent it, or at least have that particular understanding before and when something happens. So these are the two major priorities. Apart from that, there will be very many small projects which any organization should take if they are moving from on-premises to cloud. Then in that case, whatever is required from the point of view of the security migration, you can move your database on premises to cloud, you can move your application, but when you move your security from your on premises to cloud, the architecture needs to be reviewed, it needs to be checked again. You can't simply replicate whatever was there in your premises onto a cloud. Maybe you need to change the technology, maybe you need to change the way how things are going to be, and that is something which is going to be a big challenge, but that is also a priority for any organization who is seriously wanting to move on to the cloud. And the last but not the least is, as Partha was saying, I like that idea that having a uniform experience across various devices without any kind of a seamless experience and being able to enjoy that rather than just coping up with that kind of a thing. I think the whole workload has to, of course, it is moved out of the data center, but it has to also move out of the endpoint and some virtual layer in between, which in the past they used to call it as VDI, but we cannot call it VDI anymore because there are very many other type of devices which are already integrating with our applications like mobile, tablets, and so many other devices. So there has to be some vocabulary for that, but a virtual interface in between with all the data which can be controlled, protected, encrypted, backed up, and maintained, so that that can always act as a shield from any kind of an endpoint attack, is I think which is also going to be a priority for 2022.
Sure. No, thanks. I think so. Deception technologies, hunting, threat hunting, and maybe virtualization of the entire endpoint experience. Fair, Milind. Navaneethan, sorry. I think it'll be good to get your thoughts as well on this.
Amazing, Siddharth. It's a great thought from all the leaders. Partha and Milind, Alok brought it amazing stuff. It's really good to take it forward. The positive directions. In addition to their thought, maybe from my standpoint, I look for the holistic approach. I mean, the most of the points it's a very valid, but on top of that, really, it should not be a silo. Like cybersecurity is part of everybody team. I mean, everyone team, and everyone team should have the cybersecurity as one of the KRA or be the key portfolios, which should be embedded as part of their day-to-day work. The holistic approach will help because now this environment is not like the earlier one. It's not static and it's not unprotected. It's like it's absolutely on the virtual side, right? Not only our data, it's on the cloud. Our work also on the absolutely in cloud. The people can work from anywhere, wherever it is. If you have just internet, that's absolutely fine for us. That's one point. This threats can come from the multiple factors. That's why really we need a holistic approach in terms of doing the risk assessment, the business impact assessment, and in terms of the detection side and the prevention side, and covering the people, process, technology side, which need a lot of attention. And earlier stages, if you see, the process is absolutely the different one. I mean, in terms of startups, you cannot see much process, right? It's not well established. Always they look for how we can get things done the work effectively. They will be an extra. So the bonding with the people, rapport with the people play very significant role when compared to or better than the process. So that's a way the most of the startups and maybe the current organizations really is going up. So that's one point. The security as a culture which needs to be built from the scratch, from top to bottom, which bring very important aspects. Second one is in terms of fundamentals. Really, even though we are going on the cloud, virtuals, and most of the technologies emerging, and a lot of SaaS product coming to the pictures, really we should be very strong on the the fundamentals in terms of the architecture, security by designs, or the privacy by designs, or in terms of endpoint protections with the multiple use cases. How we are going to take care of the things is very important. So because wherever you travel, wherever what are the technologies comes, the fundamental needs to be reinforced effectively and consistently across the organization. And third one is know your data. I mean, really, we are not sure like where the data is resides, what data is resides. So because you may have a crown jewel accounts or crown jewels data which may not have a much protections. So we should have the entire flow of data of what data is flowing where to where, who are the stakeholders involving, I mean, who's tapping what, who's processing what kind of the informations play very significant the information. So know your data is very important. Whether you are the PCDSS or you are the you are not running this critical, but ultimately just you are running the process. So each and every data is very important for these organizations. And fourth one is in terms of internal, external, and then vendor integrations. Earlier also we do that vendor risk management, but when compared to earlier and now, it's a drastic change. It's a matter of minutes. Just simple API will pull up. If you take all the ransomware or all the dark web, it's a small API which will pull this entire your database. It's multiple TBs or in gigabytes, but still it's easy to pull out this entire data. As a final comment, always we should be very effective and consistent on your resilience as well as the vigilance, because then we can take it forward in terms of the funding side as well as our funding side to take care of our assets as well as our organization reputations.
No, thanks, Navaneethan. And I think I'm sort of watching the clock as well tick away. So while there would have been, I would have loved to cover a couple of other themes, but sometimes all good things have to come to an end. But I think from a Trends 2022 perspective, I think what I could pick up from all four of you as leaders in the industry is, I mean, there's a huge list that all of you have put out there. But I think a couple of things that came through from all of you is one is around this entire focus around endpoint and how do you secure the endpoint, whether you move security to the edge or you virtualize or you just kind of look at how do I kind of address the endpoint security. I think endpoint security is coming out very, very strongly from all four of you. I think the other second piece which is coming out very, very strongly from all four of you is the entire piece around cloud journeys and securing the cloud real estate. And when organizations will operate in this hybrid model, how do you kind of secure that ecosystem? So I think those are two things that are sort of coming out very clearly. Of course, there are lots of other aspects, whether it's pivoting towards managed services, deception technologies, or security culture. Of course, all of them continue to be important. So, but with this, I think I'll bring this panel discussion to an end. And I'd like to thank all four of my fellow panelists for making this so enjoyable for me personally. So it's been great chatting with all four of you. So thanks Partha, thanks Milind, thanks Navaneethan, and thanks Alok. And thank you all who've been in the audience listening to all of us. I hope there were some useful takeaways, and look forward to more such sessions with all of you as well.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Siddharth.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this security panel. It was very interesting.